The reason I noticed him was because he had something very big. That's right, how do you feel? I feel very excited, it's really beautiful. That's right, it's very beautiful, as long as you like it. This is a peak moment of the survival challenge. Living with a beautiful woman in the jungle for 21 days. No food, no clothes, just pure survival. Complete the challenge and win $100,000. Got skills or curiosity? Try it. This season's male contestant is Luke. He joined to test himself in new ways. The female contestant, Alyssa, is a survival coach. She found this format fresh and exciting. At the meeting point, they both removed their clothes. They'd spent 21 days living this way. Alyssa was nervous but secretly thrilled. Meeting Luke didn't disappoint her. She was immediately drawn to his best feature. Her compliments made Luke proud. After meeting, they got 2 tools, an axe and an iron pot from the film crew. Great for cooking and everyday use. Then they opened the map. The challenge was set in Mexico's Yucatan, a historic area once home to the Mayans. It was currently peak summer. They chose to head 3 kilometers north to a beach. The beach sat on the forest's edge. Natural water holes nearby made fresh water easier to find. There were also many crocodiles. Catching one solves food. Talking as they walked, they soon reached the spot. These rocks can block the wind, an ideal spot to set up camp. They gathered bamboo and quickly set up a shelter. Everything felt fine for now. Even ants joined in, scratching their itches. By day 2, they faced intense heat. It made them sluggish and drained. Without water, dehydration was near. They headed into the forest for water. Limestone pools were common in the areas, but the water had too much sulfur. It looked almost like urine. They had to boil it to make it safe. So fire became the next mission. They tried rubbing wood to spark a flame. Luke sweat buckets but failed to light it. Too tired, they paused the effort. Having undrinkable water was frustrating. 3 days without water would be dangerous. On day 3, fire was still the goal. Alyssa made a new bow drill. Luke kept trying with all his strength. Only a little smoke appeared. After resting, they gave it another go. Luke sped up his pace. But the string snapped, still no fire. Luke was drained and done. He tried a new way to purify water, but he didn't give up on fire. First, he needed water to recover. Alyssa supported his plan. He grabbed bamboo and charcoal from the beach. He added sand and crushed charcoal inside. Water dripped cleanly from the bottom. It smelled fine, so they drank it happily. Now they had water, but still no fire. Without it, food couldn't be cooked. The coast had lots of sea snails. Unpleasant, but at least edible raw. Since fire was missing, it was their best option. By day 6, they were sick of snails. They went to search for new food. They found a clear pond inland. While bathing, Alyssa heard something. She looked again, shocked. A crocodile was watching them. They scrambled to shore in panic. The croc chased. They escaped. On day 7, they still aimed for protein. Luke built a new bow drill setup. It spun with help from stones and bamboo. The reverse force helped conserve energy. Despite the effort, the wood broke. No fire. They were left exhausted again. No fire meant nightly insect bites. Alyssa was attacked all night long. On day 8, Luke found a bottle. He used it to focus sunlight like a lens. He hoped to ignite dry grass. Alyssa prepared alternate fire options. She made another bow drills. Luke focused the sunlight for hours, but the heat wasn't enough. Thus, the glass didn't work at all. They gave up on that method. Alyssa tried the bow again. This time the string was stronger. Still, rubbing made a hole. No fire. They were both deeply frustrated. They never imagined fire was this hard. Alyssa, being a coach, felt defeated. By day 10, winds picked up. A storm was clearly coming. They used the chance to store rainwater. Heavy rain came that afternoon. With no other task, they kept at it. They sharpened the wood tip again. At last, a spark ignited after relentless effort. They didn't expect making fire would be this hard. For Alyssa, a survival coach, this made her especially disappointed. Time passed to day 10. Strong winds blew across the island. This was a sign of an approaching storm. The two took the opportunity to gather fresh water and got containers ready. By afternoon, it rained heavily. With nothing else to do, they kept trying to start a fire. They sharpened the rubbing tip again. Thanks to continuous effort, finally a spark appeared. They gently moved it onto the tinder. Blowing softly, along with the rising smoke, the fire finally caught. It made both of them extremely excited. With fire, they could now hunt, and at night, they wouldn't be bothered by insects. But they didn't know that fire didn't affect flies. At night, they were still constantly disturbed, making it impossible to sleep. Time passed to day 11. Luke woke up early to set traps, using coconut meat as bait. There were a lot of lizards here. If they took the bait, the rope would snap tight, trapping them instantly. Alyssa, skillful with her hands, also wove a fish trap. She placed it inside a rock cave, hoping to catch a few fish or crabs. Time passed to day 13. Luke's trap finally had a target. Maybe sensing danger ahead, the lizard was extremely cautious. Luke was full of anticipation, but the trap was triggered. The coconut meat was eaten too. Sadly, the lizard got away. Luke realized there was a problem with the trap. Even after improving the trap, the following days they still caught nothing. To get protein, Luke set up all kinds of traps. They also set a few traps in the forest. Even though they set many traps, there were still no results, no protein found. Both were exhausted from hunger. They had no energy left and could only rest at camp. Time passed to day 17. As usual, the two went to check the traps. Alyssa's fish trap still had nothing, and Luke's body was also having problems. So hungry, he was dizzy and lightheaded, feeling feeling like he could collapse at any moment. Once he sat down, he didn't want to move. This made Alyssa uneasy. She didn't expect the man who looked strong would fall so easily. She told him to go back and rest first. Luke thought she was right. With his current condition, without proper rest, he probably wouldn't have the strength to do anything. Time passed to day 19. As a survival coach, Alyssa had many ways to get protein. Now that Luke had no strength, she had no choice but to act on her own. Crabs in this area were active at night. She and Luke used palm leaves to weave several torches, deciding to try their luck at night. At night, the two held torches and went to the beach. Sure enough, they saw crabs appear, but a big wave came and extinguished the torches. Their visibility was now almost zero, but since they were already there, they had to catch a few no matter what. Alyssa decided to use the camera's faint light to keep looking for crabs. As soon as she saw their tracks, the darkness made them disappear right away. The sharp rocks made Luke not want to move. In the end, Alyssa, quick and observant, used a stick to catch one. Luke hadn't finished celebrating. Next to him, he heard Alyssa catch another one. Knowing he couldn't help at all, Luke thought eating the smaller one was enough. Back at camp, they immediately prepared the crab meal. After so many days, they finally had a proper meal. Luke didn't hold back in praising Alyssa. This made Alyssa very pleased. Time passed to day 21. Today was departure day. The two also ate a meal of snails to regain energy. Today, they needed to reach within 8 hours, 2 rocks 6 kilometers away on the other side of the island. The fastest way was to go through the forest. But this place was full of thorns. Not only did it slow them down, but it also caused frequent pain. If they encountered crocodiles, they had to go around. Not only did this add to the distance, but it also caused them to get lost. When they finally reached the coast, they realized it wasn't the evacuation point. After observing the terrain, they determined there were still about 2 kilometers to go. The only way now was to walk along the beach. As long as they were fast enough, they could still make it in time. They pushed through countless difficulties and finally saw what lay ahead. 2 rocks just like on the map. At that moment, they also heard engine sounds. It seemed the pickup crew had arrived. From here, the two completed the challenge. Actually, the challenge wasn't as hard as imagined. At most, they just lost a little weight. But getting to spend 21 days with a beautiful woman or handsome guy like this, you should try it once. This is definitely the most dramatic wilderness survival ever. Strangers paired up to survive 21 days in the wild. No food, no clothes. If they persist until the end, they also receive $100,000. The challenge location is in the Bolivian rainforest. This place has a harsh environment and is a kingdom of venomous creatures. You could say surviving here even one day is like a near-death experience. The first to appear is a female contestant named Viagra, mother of 3. She loves nature and self-studied primitive survival skills for 5 years. Believing she had mastered it, she joined the challenge to test her ability. The male contestant is Vincent, an outdoor survival coach. For him, this challenge was as easy as flipping a hand. When they arrived at the designated location, they quickly removed their clothing. About this kind of meeting, both were very calm. Clearly, they were already used to similar situations. They began chatting intimately. After the introductions, the two took out 1 allowed item each. Vincent prepared a fire starting tool. Viagra brought an axe. Not sure if it was to defend herself from Vincent. Then they looked at the map provided by the film crew. They could follow the river to a location 8 kilometers away. That place had more abundant resources. On day 21, they would need to go another 5 kilometers along the river, then climb a steep slope to reach the extraction point. After understanding the map details, the challenge officially began. After walking a few steps, Vincent spotted poisonous berries and started explaining in detail. But Viagra found him too talkative. Basic knowledge like that still needed explaining? Clearly, Viagra wasn't impressed with Vincent. At this time, the sun was blazing. They decided to set up a temporary shelter in the forest, waiting until morning when it would be cooler to head to the ravine. They quickly found a shady spot and began chopping materials to build. With both of them working together, a shelter that let in wind and rain was completed. But working for a long time made them very thirsty. They didn't have the strength to search for water now, so they had to endure for a day. Time moved on to day 2. The main task was to find fresh water, but the river water here contained many parasites. They had to head downstream where it was more open and breezy. After walking a long time under the hot sun, Viagra started feeling unwell and nauseous. These were symptoms of dehydration. Vincent quickly found some leaves. Leaf water could help reduce nausea. After Viagra recovered, the two continued on their way. They quickly reached a waterfall in the ravine. Viagra was extremely excited and immediately ran to the pond under the waterfall. Both of them bathed together. Then they found a rock wall where water trickled through layers of sand. Compared to other places, this was a relatively clean water source. Even though there was a risk of stomachache, they couldn't worry about that now. The two drank their fill. Now they had fresh water. They decided to set up camp nearby and found a wide clearing in the forest. First, they had to make fire. Vincent really did have the skills. His speed at making fire amazed Viagra, who kept praising him as a real man. Before long, dark clouds gathered, and they had to quickly build a shelter before heavy rain came. That night, thunder roared loudly. Both were frightened, worried the heavy rain would cause the waterfall to collapse and flood the camp. Luckily, nothing happened. By the next day, the main task was to reinforce the shelter. But while building, Vincent started rambling again about his own ideas for shelter design. This made Viagra very annoyed. She didn't like his bossy attitude. The two didn't like each other. Vincent walked away from the camp to calm down. He was also fed up with Viagra's princess attitude. While wandering aimlessly, he suddenly spotted a small bird. When Vincent brought food back to camp, Viagra unusually showed great concern for him, but Vincent just laughed it off. Viagra felt rejected, but Vincent didn't care and focused only on prepping the bird. After plucking the feathers, he grilled it over charcoal. Even though he didn't like Viagra, he still shared some with her. Because they were a team, before they knew it, it was already day 10. Aside from that bird, they hadn't had a decent meal. Vincent stayed in the camp all day, refusing to go search for food. Viagra was upset and criticized him, saying he should act like a man and take responsibility for finding protein. Vincent also felt that being hungry wasn't working out, so he made a fishing spear and went to a small pond. While he was fishing, Viagra stood watching from a distance. Seeing that he had no results, Viagra started complaining again. If it were her husband, he would go into the bushes to hunt, not waste time like Vincent in the river doing nothing. In the end, Vincent caught nothing. No food was still better. Worse yet, dark clouds started gathering and thunder rumbled loudly. That was a sign of heavy rain coming. Their camp was located in a flood zone. Once the water rose, there were cliffs on 3 sides. There'd be no escape. The rain finally started pouring. It rained nonstop for several days. They could only huddle in the shelter, unable to do anything. On day 14, the river had risen close to the camp. Water from the waterfall also splashed into the camp. At this rate, something bad was bound to happen. Fortunately, by day 15, the rain finally stopped, but Vincent's body had problems. He was extremely weak all over. Seeing him like that made Viagra feel uneasy too. But she was helpless, only able to pray he would be okay. Time passed into the night. Viagra still worried about Vincent's condition and hurried to call for medical emergency assistance. The medical team checked and found he was dehydrated, along with malnutrition and fatigue, but it hadn't reached the worst stage. As long as he didn't voluntarily quit, he had to keep participating in the challenge. Time passed to day 17. Vincent's condition still hadn't improved. On the contrary, it got worse. Viagra was also concerned and started asking about Vincent's condition. At that point, Vincent shared his thoughts. Right now, with no energy intake, he wouldn't be able to endure the days ahead. Plus, they still had to travel 5 kilometers to the extraction point. When he came here, his wife reminded him to prioritize his health, so he decided to withdraw from the competition. Hearing that, Viagra couldn't help but feel upset. Now that you're leaving, what am I supposed to do? After 16 days of survival, Vincent finally withdrew from the competition. Now only Viagra was left. From this point on, she would have to face everything alone. In fact, she couldn't endure much longer either. It was just that before leaving, her husband had asked her to persist until the end. Now she had no choice but to keep going. Alone in the camp, the overwhelming loneliness made her think of Vincent. When bored, she talked to the rock drawing on her hand. But she hadn't eaten anything for 11 days straight. Hunger forced her to go out and look for food. She tried to catch fish in the river, but couldn't see any signs of them. After a long wait, she finally saw one. It immediately slipped into a rock crevice, and after digging around for a while, she still couldn't catch it. Right at that moment, she spotted a parrot head by the shore. She didn't care how it got there. A source of protein that came to her couldn't be passed up. She went back to camp and grilled it over the fire. The taste wasn't bad. She ate every bit in one go. Time passed to day 20. Viagra had severe stomach pain, hurting so badly she cried out. The medical team rushed to check on her. Doctors found she had a serious infection and quickly stretchered her out for emergency treatment at the hospital. On day 20 of the survival challenge, Viagra also ended the challenge due to health issues. As for Vincent, who had quit earlier, not only had he lost a serious amount of weight, but when he returned, he was also diagnosed with 3 types of tropical diseases and 1 dangerous illness. He had to be hospitalized for a whole month. Truly, there was no benefit gained, only trouble in return. If you could survive 21 days in the wild with a beautiful woman like that, with no food and no clothes, and make it to the end to win a $100,000 prize, would you be willing to do it? This time, the challenge location is deep in the Malaysian jungle. This place is not only full of dangerous insects, but also many large predators. The survival environment is extremely harsh, but our male contestant Carl wasn't bothered at all. A firefighter and nurse, he had a strong psychological tolerance. More than 10 years in the job, he had faced many dangers and overcome them safely thanks to his strong will. The female contestant is a single mom named Pearson. For the challenge, she was both excited and scared. Joining was also to set an example for her child to bravely face difficulties. Seeing strangers appear, the local villagers informed each other. When they reached the designated spot, both quickly removed their clothes. They arrived at the meeting point. Even though it was their first time meeting, they weren't shy at all and chatted happily. Then, each took out one item they brought, a knife and a fire striker. Some of the scenes had to be filmed by themselves. According to the map, they could follow the river, making it easier to find fresh water and food. On day 21, they would move to the evacuation point 5 kilometers away, where a rescue boat was waiting. After understanding all the information, the challenge officially began for the 2. The weather here was unpredictable. Rain was a common thing. Due to lack of jungle survival experience, they swam across as soon as they saw a river blocking the way, unaware that a group of people was secretly watching them. Luckily, their identities weren't confirmed, so no action was taken. They also got ashore safely. Soon they had gone deep into the jungle. The crisscross tree trunks caught their attention. Using them as a shelter frame would save energy. They immediately started gathering materials. The two divided tasks clearly. One looked for bamboo, the other for vines. But in the jungle without protection, they were bitten all over by mosquitoes and leeches. Physical discomfort slowed progress. They hadn't finished the shelter by afternoon. That night, it rained again. Their first night passed in the cold. On the second day, the two continued working on the shelter. In this damp environment, progress was slower than usual. Carl's hand was cut by bamboo and bled syrupy red. Only then did he realize he had underestimated the rainforest. Pearson had it even worse. A leech crawled into a sensitive spot, causing her extreme discomfort. Even after removing it, the area was still sore. In this weather, there was no worry about water shortage. Just placing taro leaves could collect rainwater. After rehydrating, the two felt much better and continued building the shelter. But from standing in the rain too long, Pearson was shivering and crying from the cold. Carl quickly told her to stop and move around gently to warm up. He could build the shelter alone, but Pearson was too cold to move. Seeing her in such a sad state, Carl guided her through some exercises. After a few movements, Pearson felt much better. She was very grateful for Carl's help. As a team, helping Pearson return to normal made Carl happy too. Thanks to their combined efforts, they finally finished the shelter. Sleeping in the shelter was truly comfortable. By day 3, the rain still didn't stop. Besides lying still in the shelter, there was nothing else to do. By day 6, the two were still stuck in the shelter without any food. They were both so hungry, their stomachs felt stuck to their backs. They often woke up in the middle of the night from hunger. By day 8, the two realized they couldn't go on like this and began searching for food. Even though it was hard to find food in the rain, it was better than sitting around in the shelter. Each chose a direction to search. Pearson hadn't gone far when she spotted a highly venomous cobra. This was heaven-sent protein. She quickly called Carl over. Carl showed great courage, swiftly subdued the snake, and used his knife to handle its head. But eating this meal wouldn't be easy. The place was too damp. Starting a fire was extremely difficult. The two tried many times without success and had to put it off for now, waiting for better weather the next day. By day 9, the rain finally stopped. The two laid the firewood out in the sun and gathered dry bamboo shavings. But the wood was still wet. They still couldn't start a fire. Meat right in front of them, but not being able to eat it made them extremely frustrated. Because they couldn't start a fire for days, the snake started to smell. It was no longer edible, so they had to throw it away. The urgent task was still starting a fire. Without fire, they would get bitten by insects. At night, they couldn't sleep because of the constant disturbance. After one night, there wasn't a single spot on Pearson's body that wasn't bitten. Meanwhile, Carl didn't get bitten at all. He wanted to share the suffering with Pearson, but the insects didn't cooperate. Pearson's spirit was nearly broken. Seeing Pearson so downcast, Carl just wanted to comfort her. On day 14, after a few days of drying, the tinder was drier. Carl tried starting a fire again. This time, he succeeded. The fire flared up quickly. With fire, they finally felt safe and could continue the challenge. The stream had a lot of crucian carp, but with no fishing rod, they had to catch them by hand. It took a lot of effort to catch just one. After gutting it, they discovered it was a female that had just laid eggs. This type of fish usually doesn't live long after laying eggs. The meat had already been affected by spawning. Eating it could be harmful to their health. They had to give up this precious protein source. Now, the only option was to endure hunger. By day 15, the two continued searching for food. At this point, they wouldn't pass up anything edible. Even all kinds of insects were stuffed into their mouths. They came across a patch of white mushrooms by chance. Since she didn't recognize the type, Pearson didn't dare eat them right away and brought them back to the shelter for later. But Carl didn't care much. Too hungry, he began eating them immediately. But after a few bites, something felt wrong. His throat felt very uncomfortable. He knew something was wrong. Sure enough, by day 16, his body started reacting. He was shivering all over. The medical team quickly checked on him. His body temperature had reached 102.2 degrees 39 degrees Fahrenheit. It was an emergency. The medics had to use cold stream water to bring his fever down. After some treatment, Carl's temperature finally dropped. But if it rose again, the organizers would be forced to remove him from the challenge. Pearson really didn't want Carl to quit. She couldn't survive alone. Time passed to day 18. Carl's body was still very weak. He not only had to survive a few more days, but also reach the evacuation boat in the lake. Seeing how weak he looked, Pearson knew she had to do something. She decided to build a raft to take Carl to the evacuation point. She found some dry bamboo and tied them together to make a simple raft. Time passed to day 21. Carl was still extremely weak. Today, they would reach the evacuation point. Thanks to the raft's buoyancy, the two followed the river downstream. Seeing crocodiles lurking nearby, both were on edge. Luckily, they didn't paddle far before spotting the evacuation boat. 21 days without food. Thanks to their incredible hunger endurance, they finally completed the challenge and received the prize. This challenge was amazing. It was truly intense. If you love wilderness survival, you must try this challenge. Survive 21 days with a beautiful woman, persist, and win $10,000. Just one small difficulty: no food allowed, no clothes allowed. But for $10,000, most people can get through a little trouble. If you want to join, act now. Be like Steve, known as the Life Guide. Ever since he watched the show, his restless heart was instantly stirred. He signed up without hesitation. And his companion is Chris, a strong girl who loves adventure. This was exactly the kind of challenge she liked. They clearly had the same vibe. When they met, both were thrilled. They even wished they'd joined sooner. This time, the challenge was in Mexico's deep rainforest. Not much around, just ants, crocs, and snakes everywhere. But they didn't seem to mind. They followed the map to a remote forest lake, a perfect spot to relax and splash around. Excited, they headed out together, but the forest swarmed with ants and mosquitoes. Steve's back started itching. Chris offered to help, but he was shy and said no. She told him not to be silly. She might need his help too. Teamwork mattered. That made Steve feel overly stiff. Chris wanted to open his mind. After 2 tough hours, they reached the lake. It was stunning. They joked they could survive a whole year there. They picked a lakeside spot for their shelter, but a nearby monkey wasn't happy. His spot. How could he let humans sleep peacefully? Despite the yelling, they ignored it and focused on fire, but it was way too damp. They got sparks but no flames. Chris tried too, but still nothing by midnight. The monkey kept howling now and then. They feared a night ambush. Their nerves were shot. Shivering, they made it to day 2. No fire all night. Tired and dehydrated, they felt awful. But without fire, they couldn't do anything else. So they took turns. By noon, they finally started a fire. Both were overjoyed. Their faces regained color. Steve suggested finding water first, but Chris was too hungry to bear it. She decided to make a rat trap first. For her, these tasks were a piece of cake. By the time water was found, they'd probably have results. On the way, they spotted a red-tailed snake. Steve loves snakes. He didn't want to hurt it deep down, but survival came first. After a brief hesitation, he went for the protein that had come to him. During the struggle, the snake unfortunately fell into the water. Steve quickly used a stick to jump to the shore, but he still hesitated, unwilling to strike. Chris didn't understand his hesitation. In survival, you can't afford pity. Urged by Chris, he struck the snake's head. After that, he felt very upset, but there was no choice. Survival required toughness. At camp, they skinned, cleaned, and grilled it over charcoal. His words were full of regret, but he ate heartily. After getting full, the two started building a shelter. They used sticks to make a cone-shaped frame, tying palm leaves on top. The advantage was it could be moved easily. If they wanted to relocate, just lift the frame. Since the fire was outside, they couldn't sleep at night due to mosquito bites. The entire night passed in constant itching. Time passed to day 4. They had gone through 3 sleepless nights from mosquito disturbance. They sealed the shelter completely with palm leaves. But Chris still didn't feel safe. She found a termite nest. As everyone knows, termite nests are natural mosquito repellent. Burning them helps keep mosquitoes away. Night came. Even with termite nests burning, there were just too many bugs. The smoke barely helped. They couldn't sleep all night from mosquito bites. Chris was so miserable, she started swearing. Day 7 came in a flash. Her body was covered in bites. She felt like she was losing her mind. Steve, being a life coach, tried to comfort her. He said food helps when you're at your lowest. She rushed to check her trap, still empty. Steve was busy weaving a fish trap. Sleep didn't matter much anymore, but not eating all day made him feel mentally drained. He set the trap in the water and waited. To stop bites, Steve smeared wet mud on his skin. But it didn't help. He still couldn't sleep. Chris cried out from the pain. Soon it was already day 10. They still couldn't sleep at night. Chris complained non-stop about everything. Steve got so annoyed he had to walk off every morning. As a coach, he was supposed to build confidence. But with Chris constantly venting, his patience was nearly gone, ready to snap. By day 11, the two built a raised bed to avoid bugs. It felt more comfortable lying up off the ground. But at night, Chris complained again. It wasn't comfy. Steve lost his patience and called her out for never helping. They had a big fight. Steve had reached his limit, but Chris didn't care. She told him to do whatever he wanted. They stopped talking. Each did their own thing, amusing the local monkey, but Steve finally got some peaceful sleep. Chris, though, was starving. Her stomach hurt. She casually asked if Steve felt the same, hoping he'd look for food, but Steve didn't bother. He said he wasn't hungry. If she was, she should deal with it herself. By day 15, as a teammate, he couldn't ignore it anymore and went out to find food. He brought back a sweet agave core for Chris. That small meal helped them make peace. Things between them quickly got better. By day 17, Chris woke up crying. Steve felt terrible. He asked what was wrong. She was hungry, drained, and ready to quit. But Steve didn't want her to leave. He wasn't used to sleeping alone. He made a deal with her. If they found food within 24 hours, she'd stay. Chris agreed. If there was food, she'd continue. Steve quickly went out to search. He checked the fish trap, still empty. He searched deeper in the woods and found a coral snake. It was deadly, but he wanted to catch it for her. Sadly, he wasn't quick enough. It got away. Unfortunately, his skills weren't good enough. The snake quickly got away. By day 18, Chris was so hungry she broke down crying. Seeing her that miserable made Steve feel awful too. But finding food was just too difficult. There wasn't a good solution for now. That night, Steve heard strange noises nearby and quickly got up to check. Turned out it was 2 toads. Chris was overjoyed and handled them herself. With this feast, they could finally sleep well tonight. Time passed to day 19. With protein back in her system, Chris felt better and even went to collect wood and light a fire. Seeing her full of energy again made Steve very happy. He hoped they could finish the challenge side by side and maybe share a few more nights together. With Chris feeling better, she became more talkative. They chatted about all sorts of things. Their bond kept growing. They even went to relieve themselves together, joking about who went more. Suddenly, it was already day 21. Departure day had come. According to the map, they had to cross jungle, scale a mountain, and swim a lake to reach the evac point on the far side. The whole trip was 5 kilometers. Although the path was rough, their pace wasn't slow. Soon, they arrived at the lake. There were still crocodile tracks left behind, but there was no other choice. They had to swim across to claim victory. Afraid of crocodiles, neither of them wanted to go first. After some back and forth, Steve had to take the lead. He slowly swam across to the other side. They didn't expect something to be lurking nearby, despite having gone hungry for days. Thinking of victory ahead pushed them to swim faster toward shore. Luckily, for some reason, the crocodile didn't follow. Both made it safely to shore. The challenge ended successfully. After watching all this, do you think it looks easy? It's actually not too hard, and you even get to go with a beautiful woman. If you're thinking about it, act fast. You might be the main character in the next video. The feeling of secretly watching is thrilling. This is definitely a challenge survival lovers shouldn't miss. Live 21 days in the wild with a beautiful woman. There's not only food, but no clothes allowed either. Stick it out till the end and you'll get $100,000. But there are also people who don't care much about the prize. Like this guy Keith, he joined just to make friends. After all, bonding this closely is rare. The opposite of his partner Alina. She joined just to earn money for a designer handbag. The challenge location was a deserted island in Fiji. Temperatures reached 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. In the sea, there were sharks and dangerous sea snakes. Big waves and storms happened often. You could say the outer beauty hid real danger. When they got to the meeting point, the first thing was to remove their clothes. Keith was quite nervous, worried his body might react inappropriately. When the two met, seeing the beautiful girl, Keith was overjoyed. This trip was totally worth it. Then they took a knife and fire starter provided by the crew. Of course, they also had a personal camera. Following the map, they decided to head to the eastern beach near the final evacuation point. Then the two happily set off. Even though it was hot and the road was rough, their spirits were high, they chatted and made plans for the days ahead. After a few hours, they finally reached the target beach. Nearby was a pond, truly an ideal campsite. First, they had to make a fire. Keith volunteered for the fire starting job, but Alina thought she could do it and wanted to try. Turns out she had some skills. The fire caught quickly. In a flash, flames roared to life. Then Keith gathered bamboo to make 2 water containers and filled them. He added hot stones inside. This method could kill some bacteria. Even though they added a lot of hot stones, the strange smell made them hesitate to drink. Seeing it getting dark, they put off looking for water and started building their shelter. Working together, they finished it quickly. Exhausted from the day, they fell asleep early. Time passed to day 2. Due to the sharp drop in temperature at night, Keith felt cold and slept poorly. The two didn't cuddle for warmth, just leaned back to back, which left him feeling a bit regretful. The main task today was to find fresh water. In the forest, they discovered lots of coconuts. If they could pick those coconuts, they wouldn't have to worry about water for a while. Keith suggested chopping down the coconut tree, but Alina thought it was a waste of time and would use up too much energy. She thought it was better to search the ground instead, but Keith insisted on chopping down the tree. With only a knife in hand, his palms were blistered before he was even halfway through the trunk. Still, he kept going. Alina saw this and could only feel helpless. She thought they should focus on filtering water instead. That would be the long-term solution. After hours of chopping, the coconut tree finally fell. But the coconuts were still unripe and almost had no water inside. A huge waste of time and effort. It was a major blow for Keith. Alina was also very disappointed. By day 3, both were showing signs of mild dehydration. To get fresh water, they decided to trek inland before sunrise. But with no foot protection, movement in this environment was extremely slow. The sun was already high and they still hadn't found water. Both were unbearably thirsty. They spotted a small puddle in a rock crevice. Alina thought it was rainwater. It looked clear. But Keith said even rainwater left sitting too long could contain bacteria. He didn't dare drink it. Alina didn't care and bent down to drink. Seeing that Alina wasn't afraid, Keith gave in. Whatever happens, they'd face it together. The two drank freely, temporarily avoiding dehydration. That night, there was heavy rain. The rain lasted until day 5 before stopping. Now they didn't have to worry about water, but Keith's body had problems. He woke up with a stomachache. He thought it was from the water. Alina didn't feel any discomfort. By noon, Keith kept feeling nauseous and lay motionless. On day 6, Keith's condition hadn't improved. He felt that continuing would be risky. Keith shared his health concerns with Alina and decided to withdraw. But before leaving, he wanted to help finish the shelter. If he left, as long as the shelter remained, Alina wouldn't have to face everything alone. After hearing this, Alina was very disappointed, but she still encouraged him to do what he could and wait until he felt better. In truth, Keith didn't want to give up. He thought about tough times like quitting alcohol and gambling that he had overcome. Now giving up over something small made him feel guilty toward his family. He was moved to tears. After calming down, the two began cutting banana leaves to repair the shelter. They unexpectedly found a bunch of bananas, which made them both ecstatic. This discovery helped Keith push through for 2 more days. By day 8, the hot weather caused the puddle to dry up. They decided to cut bamboo to make water containers so they could store rainwater. But now, Alina started having health issues. She felt dizzy and short of breath. The symptoms were like dehydration. Feeling unwell made her irritable. Now it was Keith's turn to comfort her. By day 11, they weren't taking in enough calories and were burning hundreds daily. Hunger forced them to search for protein under the scorching sun. They went to the beach to search. Alina quickly spotted a crab in shallow water and used a stick to flip it onto the shore. Keith was in charge of handling it. A strong start. Keith then spotted a venomous snake. A bite from this kind of snake meant only 6 hours left to live. But Keith didn't hesitate. He grabbed the knife and charged. The snake quickly slithered away. The protein meal they almost had disappeared. Keith was furious and kept tracking its trail. Alina thought he was being foolish. Searching for crabs on shore was more practical. No need to take risks. She thought he was just showing off. Because of the time spent looking for the snake, in the end they only caught 1 crab. Back at the shelter, Keith lay down and didn't start a fire, which made Alina even angrier. The two had a big argument. Keith felt Alina was too sensitive, always getting mad for no reason. She was just picking a fight. A rift formed between them. After eating the crab, the two barely spoke. Neither wanted to face the other. Time passed into the evening. Alina noticed Keith acting strangely. He was almost completely unconscious. She quickly called for help. Keith was taken to the hospital for examination. This forced him to end the challenge. By day 12, now only Alina was left. She had no intention of quitting. She came here determined to take home the $100,000. To survive, she made a spear. There were many black-tipped sharks in the shallow coastal waters, but their skin was thick and tough. The spear couldn't pierce it, so she returned empty-handed. Time quickly passed to day 16. In recent days, Alina hadn't gotten any substantial protein. Hungry, she could only nibble on bananas. As usual, she went to the beach today. This time, she got lucky and caught a hybrid king crab. Grilling over charcoal would take too long. She started eating it right away, crispy, with a taste like chicken. Its protein was several times that of beef. By day 19, to push through the final 2 days, Alina decided to stay at camp to save as much energy as possible, because she'd soon need to reach the evacuation point. She stayed put until the final day. Her goal today was to reach the mountaintop extraction site. Before heading out, she ate a few grubs for energy. She walked along the beach for hours until reaching the mountain's base. Now, she just had to climb the peak ahead to succeed. She kept weaving through the forest. As the sun was about to set, she finally reached the top. The helicopter to pick her up was gradually approaching. She had used her strong will and hunger endurance to win the prize. This challenge looked hard, but it wasn't simple at all. If you've watched this far, don't miss out. If anyone's interested, don't let the chance slip away.